Hi everybody, I hope you're all doing really well. Back today to do the If I Owned a Bookstore tag. This was originally created by Robert G, Reader of Books, and I was tagged by the lovely Gareth over at Book Songs and Other Magic. And the concept of this tag is pretty simple. You have to design your perfect bookshop, a bookshop that you would love to run. And the questions are just prompts to guide whoever is watching through your bookshop concept. Such a fun tag. I've loved hearing other people's responses to this. I think there is always this urge for people who love books. If you had all of the money in the world, then you would want to run a bookshop. Myself, I never was a bookseller, despite the fact that I did submit a lot of CVs for my local Waterstones. And because I never had that opportunity to actually work at a bookshop, despite this being a dream, I don't know how feasible it would be without actually having that hands-on experience. I'm also pretty aware of how tenuous it would be to own a bookstore if you didn't have like a big influx of money. So yeah. This is a dream for if I were ever to become rich and famous, because otherwise I do worry that it would just flop. Now, I'm actually going to flip some of these questions around just because I feel like I'll be able to build up more of an idea of this bookshop idea by going from question 9 down, starting with question number 9, which is, what is the name of your bookstore? So for me, I've had this concept of a bookshop that I would love to run for a while, but I hadn't really settled on a name. And then it came to me, and that name would be The Past in the Pages Bookshop. Because question number 8, what is your specialty? Used books, new and used, only fiction, only non-fiction, fiction and non-fiction. Does your bookstore specialise in a particular genre? So yes, my bookstore would specialise in 2 genres, but over one arching umbrella, which is the past. If you've ever gone into a Daunt Books, you'll see that they have a general spread of fiction and non-fiction. However, an interesting part of Daunt Books is that some of their stock is actually set up by country, and it is a mix of non-fiction and fiction, all grouped together by the country that the book is set in. So for example, for Italy, you will have travel books about Rome and Venice mixed in with Dante, with Still Life by Alice Winman. For France, you'll see a biography of Marie Antoinette mixed in with Les Miserables. And I love this idea of mixing up your genres together like that. My concept for this, which is similar, is that it would be non-fiction history and historical fiction, and the bookshelves were put in order of chronology, with the shelves starting with prehistory, taking us through to the ancient world, through early medieval, Renaissance and early modern history, through to the modern day, like a bookshelf timeline, but the fiction and non-fiction would be all mixed in together. So this Daunt Books idea, but for historical eras. Question number 7, how does your bookstore look from the outside? Sleek and modern or dark and brooding? I think people would probably look at my concept and think it probably has more of a dark academia vibe, that it should be kind of moody. However, as you can probably tell from my general being, that doesn't quite match up with my personal aesthetic. I like things that are bright and colourful. So I might have to workshop what the outside looks at, because I personally would want it to look, kind of sleek, but also cozy. I don't want it to be too dark and brooding. I'm also a big proponent of the idea that the past is not a dark, dismal place. There is lots of colour and joy to be found in the past, rather than what a lot of period dramas can give you, which is like 50 shades of brown and beige. So we're workshopping the aesthetic of the bookstore, but I would like some colour and coziness involved. Question number 6, where is your bookstore located? In the busy heart of a large city? In the neighbourhood of a large city? In a suburban strip mall? In a small town, in a rural area? For me, I would want it to be in a historic city, so somewhere like Oxford, where I live now, or maybe York, which is where I went to university. This being said, I don't know if York necessarily has room for one more independent bookstore. There are quite a few, and it's not the largest city in the world, but I do feel like somewhere that has a lot of history, has a lot of people who come to it for its history, would be the best place to go. Question number 5, is there live entertainment, poetry readings, authors reading from current works, lectures in literature? I definitely foresee there being author events. Also, at the time of filming, I've just gotten off a call with a history festival and talk about how Monday and Tuesdays they dedicate the festival towards children and putting on educational entertainment for them. And I feel like in a history bookshop, having daytime events that kind of cater to that school age crowd and the kinds of things that they are learning would just be such a great way of getting kids into history, which is something that I'm really passionate about. I also don't know how feasible this is, but I love the idea of having like a historical movie night, maybe once a month, setting up a projector screen, putting on a historical film and having like a little film club. That could be really good fun. Question number 4, are patrons encouraged to linger? Are there comfortable chairs? What kind of lighting? Are there tables? Are there areas for group gatherings? I don't think you can have a bookshop and not have some cozy chairs. Not just for coziness, but for general accessibility. As I say, I am not very dark and brooding, so I don't imagine that my lighting would be super moody. I personally like to be able to see the books that I'm looking at, and I don't foresee there being like lots of dark corners. But certainly I like the idea of people feeling safe to linger, to be able to sit and chill. I know the concern is that people do take advantage, but I think when we're also conscious of the fact that there are so few third spaces for people to just just hang out. I do like the idea of a bookshop being a place where you can build rapport with members of your town or city, and if you build up enough of a connection, people feeling safe to just pop by and have a sit and a chat. But as I say, I've never worked in a bookstore. I don't know the ins and outs of that kind of maintenance, the logistics of making sure that your book space isn't being taken over by people who are just hanging around and not intending to buy anything. I don't know the ethics of that. Once again, something to workshop. And we have to remember, I'm never going to own this bookshop, so it probably doesn't matter. Though on the topic of people lingering, question number 3 is there a coffee bar and do you serve alcohol? Definitely, I cannot foresee me owning a bookstore that didn't include a cafe. I love a cup of tea and a cake, so it's gonna happen. I don't think I would serve alcohol. Personally, I'm not invested enough in alcohol myself to feel like that is something that I would have to include. Also, you need all sorts of different licensing to serve food and drink and different licensing for alcohol consumption. I also wouldn't really enjoy the idea of people getting rowdy. Not around the books. Personally, not my vibe, but a bit of tea and cake, absolutely. Question number 2, is there ambient music and what kind? Oh, it would be all about the period drama playlist. Gorgeous instrumental music that takes you back to a historic film, that kind of gives you the vibe of being in a historical era, would be right up my street. I think also I would like to have fun little decorative details, whether that's like little figurines. I even had this idea of like mannequins dressed up in certain period garb. I don't know how I'd manage that, but I like the idea. And then question number 1, what are the hours of operation? I wouldn't want it to close at 5, I'd like it to stretch out a little bit longer. So we'd either be doing like 10 till 7 or 11 till 8. To allow time for people who are getting off of work to be able to have a little ponder around the bookshop, to be able to do evening events, but also to be able to do some fun stuff in the daytime as well. Also, if left to my own devices, I am somebody who goes to bed around about 12, half 12 and then wakes up at 8, which obviously I cannot do as somebody who works 9 to 5 in my current life. But if I was setting it up for myself, I would love to work somewhere where I didn't have to start work until 11. Even if I had to carry on until 8 o'clock. Oh, the dream. So there we go. Those are my answers to the if I owned a bookstore tag. Thank you very much to Robert for creating this tag, and thank you to Gareth for tagging me. It's been really good fun to think a little bit more about this concept for a bookshop that I have had that will never actually come to fruition, but I've put it out into the world. The history bookshop of my dreams. Do let me know any of your answers to these questions. What kind of bookstore would you like to open? I would love to hear from you. I hope you're having a fantastic, fantastic day, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks. Bye.